Hi, I'm Phil McCann, and welcome to the final edition of my global CFO interview series, where I ask 10 of Australia's most successful CFOs, what keeps you awake at night?
It's always a good question, Phil. And I think you've asked me this before. I think last time I said nothing keeps me awake at night. Unfortunately, I've moved on and things do keep me awake at night. So it does change, but at the moment it is talent recruitment and retention, as the pandemic has made many people consider and challenge their pre-COVID working model, and businesses consider that as well. And that's making retention and recruitment particularly challenging at this moment. I think the other thing that is really playing on my mind are the inflationary pressures and the supply chain issues that we're starting to see emerge and have emerged in many of the markets that we operate in, and how we look to mitigate those going forward. So a couple of things playing on my mind, but by and large sleep relatively well.
What keeps me up at night is just, thinking through what our business and how quickly we're adapting to this pandemic. The pandemic has been in many ways very volatile. It's changed the nature of our business very positively, but it's also thrown us a lot of challenges and a lot of, what I'd say, lack of predictability. So that worries me as well. But I can tell you, for me right now, it's really, I'm optimistic about the future and optimistic that we're going to get through this stage of the pandemic. And certainly, I think it will pave a way, hopefully, for a much better future for all of us.
In our business, and although we've invested significantly, a cyber attack is always something that keeps us awake. We've got over 70% of our sales is online, digital, and it's real time online. We can't have our system go down for 5 minutes will impact us. So we've invested a lot in technology, and probably the big thing at the moment is this whole ransomware attacks that are happening. And then in more recent times, this whole supply chain disruption in markets for us, especially where we're growing, exponential growth in some markets. And, Japan's a great example where, with all of the issues with logistics, we're potentially facing, significant spikes in costs of certain products just because of disruptions and the whole food inflation that's happening at the moment, and we need to be agile to be dealing with that. When we were opening so many stores, just getting access to the number of ovens that we're going to put into stores and any disruptions on that space. So we're opening over 300 stores a year, and that's a lot of ovens. So that's probably the two things that are big on my list at the moment, Phil.
Look, really good question. My mind doesn't appear to want to stop most nights. This past year has been a tough one for me, for everybody. And what was really important to me and the Yahoo leadership team was, that we were caring for our employees, and we were focused heavily on mental health across the organization. To give you some examples where we focus on mental health, so from an employee perspective, we have a range of programs that support our employees. We have free 24/7 and confidential crisis and counseling support. We have psychiatry services and emotional wellness support, neurodiversity employee resource group, global mindfulness program, can go on, but there's quite a few there. And then obviously, where it comes to our readers and users, we support the well-being of the global community by really prioritizing mental health. We have our Yahoo Life property that's dedicated to well-being and mental health. And we have a live stream series called Reset Your Mindset, focused on holistic wellness and really, looking at transforming our experience in many facets of life. So just some examples there. And I think also, look, if we can shift the perception of how mental health is perceived at work, making it a clear business imperative, we can support the well-being of our stakeholders as well.
Phil, as my wife would attest to, I'm a very sound sleeper, so there is hardly anything that really keeps me away from a good night of sleep. The challenge is for us to how do we continue to adapt our business, to serve the emerging issues for our customers. So cyber insurance is a big one we're trying to wrestle down as an example. On talent and culture, how do we get the sort of broad set of skills that we need now to not just around technical pricing or technical claims, but around, data and data analytics and data science, creating digital products and interactions for our customers. So how do we broaden, the talent base of the company, and then how do we create the right culture to bring these talents together for the success of the companies?
Well, other than sleeping pretty well at night, there are a lot of things that could keep me awake. I think the big one is the business keeping up with the speed and pace of change? The external environment is very volatile. It's very febrile in lots of ways, and it's moving with great velocity. So are we keeping up? Are we focusing on the right things? Are we staying focused on what we need to focus on versus when do we need to really change with what's happening externally? What is the unknown that we don't know about that we should know about, I guess, is always the CFO's question that we need to stay focused on. And are we keeping our people? Are our people engaged? Are they motivated? Have we got the right skills? Are we staying agile enough? Are we really focusing on making sure our people are all pushing in the one direction?
I think the main things are, we're a global business, so we've got people management and activities taking place around the world. So just on an operational basis, that extends the day in both directions, unfortunately. Also being based in Vancouver, you're sort of 3 hours at least behind the East Coast. So you're always going to get up 3 hours before them. On the energy side, it's a little bit more challenging and a bit more fun, because we're in the middle of the whole sort of energy transition. And that means there's quite a bit more challenge about how you apply your capital and your investment thesis, and where you sort of build your portfolio has a lot more optionality in this sort of market that we're in at the moment. So that one's quite a bit more challenging in terms of capital allocation.
It's a high growth company. With that just comes just a lot of pressure to continue to perform at the levels that people expect from us. I think also we've just embarked on a very significant transaction, which is very time consuming. So ensuring that we remain focused on our business, as well as think about, what it means going forward from a broader perspective as we align ourselves with Square from the future. So there's a number of those sorts of areas. Also just making sure that, with high growth comes a lot of hard work, and you do need to be careful that your people remember that there's also a life outside of work, and making sure that we get that balance correct.
It is all about making sure that the business model of our company is much more resilient to shocks. For example, supply chains around the world are disrupted, irrespective of the industry. We all know that. But then fundamentally the question one has to ask ourselves is, what are we doing to ensure that our business model itself is more resilient? And so what we embarked on is a pretty sophisticated transformation, whereby the vast majority of our business becomes an as-a-service business, where we provide solutions to customers on premise that we manage on their behalf, and for which we charge on a rateable basis, on a monthly basis, annual basis, etc. We're taking more risk in doing so, but that allows us to have rateable revenue, and that rateable revenue is a lot more robust and solid, as opposed to cyclical revenue that we still continue to have in some parts of our business. So that's what keeps me at night.
The question, what keeps me awake at night, I'd like to say what are the areas more that I focus on rather than that they would keep me awake at night. If I was kind of to call out what are the key things, first of all, it's people. Secondly, I would say it is about making sure that we continue to deal with what is still a very volatile environment globally, with lots of inflation and lots of challenges in supply chains being disrupted globally. So it's managing our way to that, supporting our customers. And the third piece of it is really making sure that we have future plans, so that we're not just caught up in the day-to-day of managing all this complexity.
I hope you've enjoyed the series. I found it fascinating to learn of Marie Mai's early life by the Barrier Reef, which has seeded her passion for sustainability. Also, how many companies have adapted and flourished in response to the pandemic. I was disappointed to hear from Ming that only one female chief executive was appointed to an ASX 200 last year. But I'm pleased to say that over 80% of my CFO team's appointments have met our stringent diversity criteria. I appreciate your support and look forward to connecting with you again in the near future.